Hey everyone, this is Zeuxcg and this is my Hackweek demo. I want to show you guys what I've been working on. The topic of the demo is lights and shadows. We have done a bit of work on lights and shadows in the past year. We shipped the voxel lighting system a bit before that. We added a few small features to it. We redesigned the character shadows, but I don't think we are done. I think there's more that we should do, more that we could do. And the demo today is an exploration of possibly things to come. We'll see how it goes. There's a lot of content to cover, so I'll go fast. Let's just go and get started. So first, voxel lighting. So there are two light types right now that you can use with the voxel lighting, point light and spotlight. Sometimes it's not easy to light your level with just these two, so I thought I would try to add another one. Here's what it looks like. It's called an area light, and you can think of it as a lot of small spotlights scattered on the surface of a part. This is the transparent part. Let me scale this part. As you see, when I scale this part, the light footprint changes, and the light has similar attributes to the spotlight, like cone angle, so you can reduce the cone angle like that to make the light a bit more focused. I think this should be a bit nicer, easier to work with primitive for filling like buildings with light, things like that. Hopefully this will prove useful. Alright, speaking of voxel lighting, so one unfortunate property of the current voxel lighting is that voxels right now don't have enough information to represent directionality of lighting, so the lighting is kind of flat. If you look at these studs look very flat. If there was sunlight here, they would actually look volumetric. Let's try and fix that. So the way we fix that is we need to add more information into every voxel about the direction of where light comes from. This requires more computation when you fill the voxel grid, and you obviously should use this information when you shade the pixels. Here's how it could look like. As you see, the studs are much better defined, and you see specular highlight on this plastic door, and we'll see more examples of how this interacts with materials shortly. Without this and with this. So this is, I don't know, I think this is a bit nicer. Okay, let's move on. This is a level, I think it's built by Zeuxcg. He gave it to me. This was supposed to be used in that run. That run is a cool game, you should check it out. Anyway, there's a cave here with lamps and some outdoor area. This wall is made of cobblestone. This is slate. As you see, the materials are kind of flat. Let's see what happens when I enable the directional lighting. Right. So you can clearly see the definition of the material. You can see that the parts of the stone that face the lamp have specular highlights. There's a lot of specular on slate here. There's specular on wood. It looks better, I would say. However, it definitely requires more tuning because it changes the way your level looks, and we don't have global illumination simulations, so in some ways it looks a bit worse, like has more contrast where you won't necessarily want one. So this is sort of work in progress. Speaking of lamps, so there's a lamp here, there's a fixture, this is a yellow part. To me, it doesn't scream I'm emitting light, right? It's not obvious that it's emitting light. How do we fix that? So there's a new experimental material. It's called neon because you can make neon lights with it. What it does is it produces a glow around the part, and the glow has the color of the part, so you can make it red, green, you know. I think this is much better. I think to me this clearly says I am the light, I emit light. Here's where the light is. So this is much better. Also, even if you don't have the light on, you can disable the light. You will still see this object in the dark because it emits light, right? So even if there is a bit of light there, you will still see it. This could be used for interesting gameplay effects. I guess it's up to you guys. Alright, let's move on. So I have a part here. This part has a smoke emitter. This is our usual smoke. It has the white color. What is wrong about this picture? So from my perspective, there are two things that are wrong. The first thing is that you see these lines. You see these lines where the particles intersect the level geometry. This is because particles are an illusion. There are a lot of planes with a good texture, and it's dangerous to place your particles near walls because you see these really, really bad artifacts. Let's try and fix that. The way we fix this is with soft particles. This is a technique where in the shader of the particle, you look at the level geometry near it and fade the particle out if it's too close. This is much, much nicer. You can see that the smoke envelops the wall. Let me move it a bit closer. Right. This means that you can place the smoke anywhere and it will look much, much more natural. So now with that out of the way, what else is wrong about this picture? Well, why is the smoke white? I mean, I know that the color of the smoke is white, but it's kind of dark in this cave and it doesn't really make sense. The smoke doesn't emit light. So let's try and fix that. So, I mean, I think this looks better and more natural, but you could achieve the same effect by changing the smoke color to gray. Here are the problems with that. The first problem is you can't move this emitter outside without changing its color. So this means right now when you place particle emitters, you have to take the light environment into account when assigning colors to them, which is bad. You shouldn't do that. It should be just automatic the way it is in this demo. What would happen if I move this effect somewhere else? Oh, hey. So when the particles are close to the light, obviously they take the light influence into account. This is using the same voxel lighting system. Let me duplicate this effect a bit so that it's obvious. All right. So you see that particles on the left are gray, particles on the right are yellowish. We can take this light and change its color, and it will just work. And we can disable this, and this will just work. And I think this is much better. This means that particles integrate better in the environment. All right, let's kill this. One final thing that I want to show in this level is, so right now, if you have a level that's combined outdoors and indoors, sometimes it's hard to get the intensities of lights and parts right, because you're forced to pick light colors that are too bright just to be able to see clearly inside. And then the outside, the contrast between outside and inside is not right. Human vision doesn't have this problem because the eyes adapt to the environment. When you go into the dark cave, your eyes get used to the darkness and you can see in the dark. Cameras have automatic exposure, which is a similar thing. So let's try to enable an experimental implementation of high dynamic range rendering, which is how people usually solve this problem in computer graphics. So here's what we have here. The sky is very bright. The sky is much brighter than everything inside the cave. So when you are in the cave and most of what you see is the cave, the sky is blown out. And you see that there is a bit of bloom that's automatically extracted and surrounds the bright surface. When you go outside, the eye or the camera, however you want to look at it, adjusts, and you see the sky and the clouds clearly. You can see dark parts of the level less clearly, but when you move back inside, you can see them again. Let's take this light and this light, I think. So when we disable this light, it's very, very dark in this cave, so the outside is completely blown out. It hurts to look there. However, when you enable this light, your vision adjusts, or the camera exposure adjusts, or something adjusts, and the contrast is reduced a bit. It feels that this feature would make it easier to build these sorts of combined levels, and it usually adjusts your lighting to be a bit more natural in any level. However, it requires more tuning. This is a rough sketch. It looks kind of nice. Okay, let's move on This is another level. This is another part with the neon material. Looks interesting, but this is not why we're here. Here's why we are here. There's another smoke particle emitter. It's still white. It's the same one that I used in the other level. Here the color of the smoke feels okay because it's completely illuminated by the sun. However, something is missing here. What is missing here? Let's add something that is missing here. Particle shadows. Particles should cast shadows. Smoke is not completely opaque. It's not completely transparent either, but it should cast a shadow. All of this is dynamic as usual in ROBLOX. You can move this particle emitter, you see the shadow readjust itself as new particles spawn and move throughout the environment. So this is neat. What would happen if smoke weren't white? Not sure how you get the smoke that is red in reality, but let's do this. It's ROBLOX, we can do anything. Look at the ground. You see that the parts of the smoke that don't completely obscure the light, the parts where the smoke is not thick enough for it to completely obscure the sun, they cast colored shadow. Let me spawn a character. Oh, by the way, while I'm spawning the character, so you see that the forceful casts shadow. This was not intentional, but why not? The other thing that you can see here is that character shadows are different from what we have right now. So we used to have completely hard-edged character shadows. They didn't blend nicely with the voxel lighting system that we have and made it impossible to disable the double shadowing effect. So we had to remove that implementation and implement something else, which is what we use right now, which is blob shadows. However, we lost a lot of details in the process. It's just a blob. These shadows are nicer, they're soft. They still play pretty nicely with the voxel system, but we retain the shape. For example, I have a bazooka here. I can enable it. You see that the bazooka also casts a shadow. Anyway, so when the character looks in the shadow of the smoke, it gets shadowed by it. It even gets the color, which you can clearly see here. If I can do this with particles, I should be able to do this with parts, right? Yes. So if the part is transparent, it can cast the colored shadow. And actually, if you look here, the character also gets the same shadow. Of course, this is ROBLOX. Everything is completely dynamic, so I can take these parts, anchor them, I can take this part, I can change the color, the shadow changes, right? The shadow color changes. I can make the part less transparent or not transparent at all. This means that it doesn't let any light through anymore, so the shadow is just grayscale. Something else that I could do, which is interesting. So this is a yellow part. I am duplicating it. I am moving the copy outside. So now there are two parts, and I'm making the outward part cyan. So this is pretty much how optics works. The light goes through two parts. And each part takes a certain component out of the almost white sunlight, keeping the red and blue out and leaving the green in, so the shadow is green. And if I stand here, my character has a green shadow. All right. So, one more thing. This is Arundel Church from Frozen. It was a part of a bigger Frozen level. I think it was made by Admiral Lennox. If I got the name wrong, I'm really sorry. And this is a great place. And why am I showing it here? It's built out of a lot of CSG parts. Let's wait a bit until they load. Okay. So let's go inside. Alright, so this is why I'm showing this to you. Here's what happens here. This church has stained glass windows. There's sun outside. The sun shines through the windows. Usually, there are a lot of micro particles in the air, like dust. And when the sunlight goes through the windows, it gets colored by the window color. And when it goes through the dust in the air, it illuminates it. So what you see is rays of light streaming from the windows. Of course, you can try to build the same thing using transparent parts in Roblox. And the difference is this is completely automatic. Let me disable this, right? So this is how the level looks right now. This is how the level looks with this effect. Also, I can move the sun. Let me try to move the sun a bit. Right? Okay. And another demonstration of the same thing. I have a different cathedral here. It's not as beautiful, but it's simpler, and there's a benefit to that. So there's a stained glass window here. It has the same effect. What we can do is we can take the rocket launcher and go crazy, go absolutely nuts. So as you see, when the blocks fall and obscure the path of the sun, the ray it's not visible anymore, and when you destroy the actual blocks, the transparent blocks, or move the transparent blocks that were casting these rays, the rays disappear as well. Completely dynamic, completely automatic, everything works. So that's it. Thank you for watching. This was Zeuxcg with the hacking demo.